I think you could very well end up with a closed country for a period of time.
By all appearances, you got what you wanted.
This is what Democrats cannot fund. This is what they have to try to stop.
Claim victory, take agency for making it successful, and start taking on fascism rather than just Chuck Schumer.
The yeas are 217, the nays are 212.
That was House Republicans today, passing their plan to avoid a government shutdown with a temporary 7-week funding bill.
Last week, the Senate defeated two different versions of a continuing resolution to fund the government after October 31st.
But within hours, that was blocked by the Democrats in the Senate.
One was basically what the House passed on a party line vote.
As Americans know, Republicans have a majority in the House and in the Senate, and they also control the White House.
One Democrat voted for it, Jared Golden, and a couple of Republicans, Tom Massey being one, voted against it.
They run the government. Republicans have the responsibility, therefore, to keep the government open.
That clean resolution basically funds government on the same old Joe Biden budget going back years. It restores funding for D.C. and it gives funding for security to members of Congress as well.
Republicans are telling the American people they're happy to help Donald Trump burn this country down, and they're happy to let the government shut down.
Chuck Schumer submitted a continuing resolution that funded government, provided more security, funded D.C., but did two other things. One is it reversed healthcare funding cuts that were made in the big ugly bill.
Healthcare was decimated. People are losing their healthcare. Hospitals are closing. People are losing their jobs.
These are cuts that would start going into effect in December.
It's outrageous, and the American people can't stand it.
But that people will start seeing in their pocketbook quickly because they're going to have to pick their Obamacare providers in the months ahead.
Their own plan for extending funding also fell short.
And the second thing, which is being ignored in all corners of this debate, is it imposed a number of measures that would reclaim the power of the purse for Congress.
Do not undermine the Constitution of the United States and the rule of law by allowing an administration to refuse to spend money appropriated by the Congress.
The failure of both of these bills to pass cloture last week makes it far more likely we're going to have a shutdown.
The votes today mean that we are, in fact, on track and more quickly moving toward a government shutdown.
The betting markets went from about 50% chances of a shutdown to 71% last I checked this morning. Nevertheless, in spite of the fact that Chuck Schumer is about to give what the left has been asking for since March, which is a shutdown.
Look, it's the Republicans shutting down the government.
Which, if you buy Ezra Klein's language, is
an intentional event. It's an effort to turn the diffuse crisis of Trump's corrupting the government into an acute crisis that the media, that the public will pay attention to.
Intentional event that will provide an opportunity to explain how bad Donald Trump is.
Right now, Democrats have no power, so no one cares what they have to say.
The same lefty critics are, instead of laying the groundwork for the shutdown,
a shutdown would make people listen.
They are still criticizing Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries.
But then Democrats would have to actually win the argument.
The latest thing is Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer say, well, we need to have a meeting with Donald Trump.
We're ready to meet with him any time and place.
They're not the only ones who agreed that they need to have a meeting with Donald Trump. John Thune has said, unless Trump weighs in on these continuing resolutions, I can't have a conversation with the Democrats. I can't negotiate with the Democrats.
It's never going to happen.
Donald Trump days ago said,
Don't even bother dealing with them.
Let him shut it down.
We will get it through because the Republicans are sticking together for the first time in a long time.
I don't need the Democrats, right? Which, of course, is not true in the Senate, given the filibuster.
I think you could very well end up with a closed country for a period of time.
So I want to talk about how we need to do a shift on messaging.
Democrats would have to actually win the argument.
And we need to do it quick, because if we're going to have a shutdown, we need to win it. And to win it, the same people who've been criticizing for 4 months need to be part of the solution rather than part of helping the Republican. By that, I mean, I want to take a step back and talk about the media world we're in.
The Trump administration is threatening to bring the government down on free speech and use it against dissent. It is also facilitating the sale of some of our biggest private media outlets to Trump allies and is a very obvious attempt to consolidate power over free expression.
You've got the mainstream media, right? And they have been hollowed out by both corporate takeovers and layoffs, and increasingly are subject to Donald Trump's bullying. You know, we just saw ABC last week capitulate to Donald Trump.
It's unfortunate that ABC even has to be in this position. They shouldn't have to be in this position. I feel for them, too, in this.
CBS, CNN, they're all under threat from Donald Trump.
But someone's got to step up and be fucking saying, hey, enough, we're not going to bow.
In particular for this fight, there are two kinds of reporters that will be central to pressuring Democrats in Congress. One is Hill reporters, beat reporters. And they speak in terms of process. So, for example, today and Friday, they're the ones talking about the specific splits on votes. They're talking about the import for Thune of having Trump. They are some of the few journalists who are actually pointing out that Schumer's continuing resolution includes language against rescissions.
They don't want to stop the rampant and illegal abuses of Donald Trump when he illegally steals or cancels congressionally approved funding for medical research and a litany of other things.
And then there's political journalists. I just read a Semaphore column today. The only mention he made of the rescissions part of this battle was a quote from Peter Welch. It was as if the only thing this is about is healthcare. Now, a lot of Democrats have been really angry with Schumer because he made this about healthcare and rescissions, which they ignore. And, you know, even the Hill reporting makes it clear that this is something Republicans know they're vulnerable on. Some Republicans actually would happily support the increased or continued subsidies for Obamacare because they know it's going to be a huge hit by December. But you got what you got, right? The reason it's healthcare is one, because it's something that Republican members of Congress themselves personally did. Donald Trump didn't take away Medicaid, didn't take away subsidies for Obamacare, didn't take away funding for rural hospitals. Almost every single Republican House and Senate member did.
In my district, 50% of all the Medicaid recipients are children. Another 25% are disabled adults.
It's an area where you can pressure them.
For 9 already struggling rural hospitals here in Tennessee. Many of these facilities rely on Medicaid funding to stay open.
It's an area where they are politically vulnerable.
We could see dozens of rural hospitals statewide close as one of the biggest slashes could be made to Medicaid.
It is an area where it will hit people who are not politically engaged and hit them fairly quickly. And we are already seeing rural hospitals close. But again, that's not the only thing that Schumer put forward. He also put forward these rescissions, which go to
the rampant and illegal abuses of Donald Trump when he illegally steals or cancels congressionally approved funding for medical research and a litany of other things.
So back to the way the media works. You've got mainstream media. And the two that are important here are political outlets, which will only cover this in a both sides thing. We're already seeing
Republicans have the majority in the Senate, as we all know, but they do need Democratic support to pass any major piece of legislation, including funding for the government.
A slew of stories about who will win, who will lose.
This could come down to a staring contest.
This is why it might win. This is why it might lose.
And the question is, who will blink first?
And that kind of reporting is going to be entirely about beltway issues. And in fact, will be interested in the question of health care.
They have a long list of items that they have asked for that are Democratic policy priorities. One of them is extending tax subsidies, tax cuts related to health care that are supposed to expire at the end of this year. They've asked for that to be included in this, but Republican leaders want to deal with that at another time.
There was a piece from Politico's Meredith Lee today where she talked about how this is an exact reversal of a prior shutdown. Schumer, as he says, is like, back then they wanted to prevent people from getting stuff. Right now, they have taken stuff away, and we want to protect what Republicans are taking away. But that's it. That's the mainstream media, which will be the core of pressure on Democratic members of Congress and which will decide if there is a shutdown, Democrats cave. which will decide whether Democrats can actually use this as an opportunity to say, here's Trump's abuse of power. Yeah, it's not ICE.
Do not have ICE agents snatch people off our streets without due process.
But it's not ICE because ICE is not something you would get this same kind of. The only Democrat who voted for the continuing resolution, the Thune continuing resolution, was Fetterman.
We have to turn the temperature down.
Fetterman wants to fund government. He voted for both of the continuing resolutions. But the only Democrat so far who has split from the party is Fetterman.
Just don't ever compare anyone to Hitler.
Everyone else backs this strategy. And one of the reasons they back it is because they've picked a topic, in addition to rescissions, that can unify the party, which is healthcare. Then there are left and right media. On the right, you've got Fox, which is always chased from the right by Newsmax, which itself is always chased by the right from OAN. And Fox will, no matter what, will cheerlead what Donald Trump is doing 24/7.
I want to go back to this one issue, though, because the media has been focused on this and attacking you. Under no circumstances, you are promising America tonight you would never abuse power as retribution against anybody.
Except for day one.
Except what?
He's going crazy. Except for day one.
Meaning?
But you've also got, and this is where I think Democrats, lefty people, just check out. They've also got this mob of people which have the ability of pressuring centrist journalists, whether it's the both sides people, whether it's individual pressure on members of Congress in, say, Virginia. They people think that they're going to target Mark Warner because a bunch of military and deep state people will be cut off. And on the left, what we have is MSNBC, which is kind of lukewarm Democratic, but will always platform right-wingers, and CNN, which will even more centrally platform right-wingers.
What about Trump using the government to enforce it? Because it's not just his words. He is also using the government to enforce his words.
Well, it is your opinion that they were threatening them. It is my opinion that they had a larger decision to make regarding their business.
Then we've got lefty pundits. And rather than pushing a party line or even trying to pressure Republicans, lefty pundits have, for probably the last 3 years, been primarily focused on criticizing Democrats. So they have been relentlessly focused on Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. Every single week, I find these kinds of people making claims that they just don't bother to check, right? Hakeem Jeffries is discouraging the focus on Epstein. No, actually, the actual article you cited said Hakeem Jeffries is a central part of the focus on Epstein, which you guys are all demanding more of. And so we have this real structural problem and a content problem, right? The structural problem is we've got a ton of pressure from the right. We've got univocal mouthpiece from Fox. Ton of pressure from the right, univocal mouthpiece from Fox. And on the left, we've got far weaker lefty outlets like MSNBC. And the pressure, instead of going to Trump, to Republicans, to members of Congress who are behind the shutdown, we have the pressure going to Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries.
Democratic leaders have had 6 months to come up with a plan.
That is a losing proposition. I promise you that if that continues, then the shutdown will backfire on Democrats. I will say that again. I promise you that if that continues, the shutdown will backfire on Democrats. And so we have a choice right now. I mean, sure, you didn't get your ICE shutdown, but you did get your abuse of power shutdown. And there is no reason why you can't set out and say, I'm going to spend my time emphasizing the rescission part of this. I'm going to spend my time trying to get obtuse political journalists to focus on the rescission part of this, on the threat to the Constitution that these rescissions that Trump did since July have been. And it doesn't sacrifice your point about ICE. It doesn't sacrifice any of your criticisms of Chuck Schumer's fecklessness. What it does is it uses the opportunity you demanded.
A shutdown is an intentional event.
To focus on Trump's authoritarianism, Once we get to shutdown, if we do get to shutdown, we can try and find ways to use that shutdown to focus on ICE, which, by the way, will still be funded, right? You may perhaps prepare for pointing out that ICE will be funded and people's food stamps won't be funded. You may point out when there's a shutdown that ICE will still be funded and healthcare is not being funded. Those are great messaging opportunities. But the thing right now is even in the next 9 days, 10 days, sure, Chuck Schumer may betray us.
This is a Trump shutdown.
I'm not counseling you to trust Chuck Schumer implicitly.
Unless he sits down and negotiates.
What I am saying is two things. There is no downside to emphasizing the rescissions part of this shutdown. There is no downside to saying, actually, Democrats are asking for two things. They're asking Republicans not to take health care away from people who already have it. And they're asking that Donald Trump not usurp the power of Congress. They're asking that every single Republican member of Congress, House and Senate, start acting like a co-equal third branch of government. Those are basic asks. And there is no downside to emphasizing the rescission side in the next 9-10 days.
A shutdown is an intentional event.
Because it may make it easier for Democrats with cold feet to continue with the shutdown. It certainly makes it harder for dumb political journalists to flatten the issues into a both sides issue. This is your opportunity to lay out the stakes of rescissions, of government funding, of three co-equal branches of Congress, three co-equal branches of government. This is your opportunity to do basic civics lessons with people whose full-time job is to report on politics.
A shutdown is an intentional event.
What cannot happen and have Democrats succeed with the shutdown is to continue the system where the Republicans already have a huge built-in advantage on messaging. They have this mob. They have nonstop propaganda, Fox News. They have Elon Musk making sure that they have an advantage on social media. And to reply to that by only targeting Schumer. By this point, there's no reason not to spend your time full-time talking about rescission. Because unless there's some counterweight
to turn the diffuse crisis of Trump's corrupting the government into an acute crisis that the media, that the public will pay attention
to that greater advantage that Republicans have, I promise you Democrats are going to lose the shutdown.
An intentional event.
I promise you this will backfire.
Yeah. Thank God for John Fetterman